Computer. Awesome. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for joining our Zeek's community call for December. It's been a while. We have one of these calls because now we have like a Zeek webinar series. So it's important that we give the updates of what's going on in the Zeek world. And with that, I think I'll just go ahead and start with Johanna if she has any updates from the Zeek LT site to give. Johanna?
Sure. The main update in a way is that we are having the Zeek webinars that you hopefully know about, which has been a bunch of work. And there is one webinar scheduled for this time next Wednesday. And I didn't prepare and I don't have the exact title here. It's Zeek file extraction, automating malware analysis. And that's the last webinar that will happen this year. There will be more webinars next year. They are not on the calendar yet, but I will add them soon, as soon as I have confirmed more of them. But it looks like we'll have webinars. We'll have like 2 webinars a month till at least April or so at the moment, which will be, and then we have reached the essentially Zeek submissions. And I'm just working on confirming some last dates there before we'll announce that new list. Apart from that, the Zeek LT election happened a while ago. It's a little bit boring in a way because the new Zeek LT has exactly the same members as the old Zeek LT, but we did an election. And if you're interested in that, look on our community webpage. Apart from that, the LT has been busy with reviewing a couple of web page updates and discussing how to increase community engagement and what our event strategy should be and what we should do about the package ecosystem. If you have any opinions about any of that, let us know. Write us an email, reach out to us on Slack. We are really curious about feedback. And in general, if you're interested in the work of the LT, we post our meeting notes every time after the meeting happens on community.zeek.org. And I think that's what I had. Come to the webinar next week.
Awesome. Thanks, Johanna. Are there any questions for Johanna on the LT update side? Cool. If not, then we'll move along and I'll just call out Christian if he has any updates on the Zeek open source project side.
Hello. Yes, I can give a technical update today. Hasn't happened in a while either, so there is a bit of stuff to cover. So let's see where to start. So 704 and 609 came out about 2 weeks ago. Tim put those together. Thank you very much, as always. These are patch releases, no security fixes in those. But if you're either on the 6.0 train or the 7.0 train, you want to be running those at this point. So check those out. And then other than that, we are closing in on 7.1, our next major release in the 7 cycle, which we're hoping to fork next week and are planning to release early in the new year, given that over the holiday, probably a lot of people, will be away and so forth. So it gets enough sort of dwell time. And I think this is a really exciting one. There is a bunch of stuff in there that is worth mentioning. So in no particular order, but this is the first Zeek release ever where you will be able to run the cluster with different backend technology other than Broker, our in-house PubSub system that we've had for well over a decade at this point. And the first technology that we're aiming to support is 0MQ. So for those of you following our development, you currently see sort of a stack of larger PRs go in, all put together by Arne. It was a 4-part sort of series of work, 3 of which I think we have sort of out of the way at this point. And basically what it means is that nothing changes in terms of defaults or how people should expect Zeek to work for now. But if you look a little closer, then you can see that you can basically in the script layer go in there and say, like, I want this backend technology, I want this serialization for events and log writes. And you just configure it in the script layer as you would expect, and then off it goes, and it works that way. And there are test cases for that and so forth. And we'll have a lot to talk about with that sort of going forward. The key bits are basically that the backend technology you use, the PubSub technology you use, is then just another plugin, as everything else pretty much in Zeek is already pluggable. And it sort of will lead to the conclusion of a bunch of work that has been happening around Broker and Zeek for like pretty much well over a year at this point, to basically make all these things sort of like live in the places that they should be, and become sort of adaptable to users' needs. This also ties into the work that Tim has been doing lately on the storage framework, which is another part that was sort of embedded in Broker, but probably never should have been. And this is basically going to give you, again, sort of a pluggable, extensible system for basically doing storage from the script layer. So basically a key val data store powered by sort of data store technology of your choosing, that we're pretty excited about, because we think it'll enable a lot of sort of things that people had to think about in terms of eventing or how to distribute state over the cluster sort of manually, that will just sort of solve naturally. So for example, if you have a centralized database, something like Postgres, then pretty naturally you get distribution of updates across the cluster, because everybody naturally talks to a centralized data store. So that is not in 7.1 just yet, and not to overpromise here, but we've been sort of doing a lot of work on that behind the scenes that should come to fruition in 7.2, but I'm mentioning it for 7.1 because it basically is part of that story of making Broker a truly sort of optional component. So certainly something to look out for in the near future. There's other good stuff in 7.1. One biggie is that the conlog is growing. And in 7.1, for the first time, we'll basically tell you about flows that are not TCP, UDP, or ICMP. So it will have more entries, and there's a new column in it as well that basically conveys simply the IP proto field as conveyed by IP to you in the conlog. This is new. This is hopefully meaningful to a lot of you out there. For anyone who doesn't want it, we're including a script to just turn off all of that if you don't want it, so it'll behave exactly as in prior releases. But of course, we're hoping that you will find it useful. Let's see, there is new analyzer work. We have a new Postgres analyzer, also written in Spicy. Johanna's work on an alternative TLS parser written in Spicy, as opposed to BinPack, which is our current default, has landed. That's currently a compile time option. But for those of you who are willing to try that out, it is ready. We should talk about that a little more in the near future as well. There's going to be, speaking of Spicy, there's going to be a Spicy bump that I think has a bunch of work that Benjamin has been up to on in his optimizer framework for code generation. And so yeah, there is a bunch of, in this release. And as you know, I think we're thinking of the 0.1 and 0.2 releases basically as milestones on the way to the next .0 release, to 8.0 in the summer. And most of our development should be sort of linearly progressing toward that. So as long as we do well, you can expect all of that stuff to sort of like just progress further and not be changed, or basically, like in the worst case, backed out in case we notice that something can't really work the way we anticipated. Once 7.1 comes out, that's going to be the last or the end of the 6.0 cycle. As usual, the time .1 comes out, we stop pushing patch releases for the previous LTS release. So that'll also be in the new year, something to keep in mind. Yeah, so I hope I'm conveying that there's a bunch of stuff going on right now that is really exciting. And we'll see how it lands, and hopefully you all get to try that out early in the new year. I think that's all I had. Thank you, Fatima. Back to you.
Thanks, Christian. That's a whole bunch of updates. So I'm pretty much excited about the conlog new entries field. So I would be looking forward to see that. It would be cool to see. But thank you so much for the bunch of updates and sharing those with the community. Are there any questions for Christian so far, whatever we discussed? Okay, if not, then lastly, I don't have much updates on the Zeek training side. We do know, however, that we have been getting a lot of questions right after the training that we did at NSF Summit this year regarding the resources and where people can find if it was recorded or if there any other training material that they can use. I do know like there are some professors also who want to integrate Zeek as part of one of their courses. So they have been reaching out to just know where exactly the resources lie. And I realized that we don't have like a central location right now where it's easy for people to go and find the resources. So maybe that's one thing that we will next work on, so that it's easy for community people to find where exactly the resources are lying, and then they can just use them instead of kind of like dabbing around internet trying to find the Zeek resources for training. So I think that's one of the things that we will work on. Other than that, next year, whenever we'll have any kind of training schedule, we will definitely communicate that with the community. But so far, we don't have any in-person or online trainings scheduled for next year. So that, I think Christian has some update on that.
Oh, no, I thank you, Fatima. I just realized we should talk about the Munich workshop. So we have an event coming up early in the new year. I don't know if you were going to cover that still, but people should know that in February, basically a bunch of us will be in Munich for a Zeek workshop. So the details are on the Zeek website. If you're in the area, if you're interested, you should swing by. I'm not sure that it will include training, I believe, is the plan. Fatima, I think via Ashish, if I know correctly.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure about that, but I
Okay,
can
so
confirm that. I know that we covered the Munich workshop update last time.
Yeah.
But I'll double
Okay.
check on training, and then we'll communicate that on the news Slack channel just to clarify the training scene there. But
Cool.
other than that, I don't have any updates on the training side. But as always, if you guys have any ideas on how we should improve our training, what we should include as the part of the Zeek training, and if we're missing out on something, please do let us know. We do have a dedicated training channel, which is open to all. Whoever wants to join, they can join that channel under Zeek. So we are always like looking forward for any kind of feedback that we can get from the community in terms of how we should conduct future trainings for Zeek. Other than that, yeah, one last thing, as Johanna mentioned, we do have webinar series. So next week we will have webinar in the same time slot, like 10 a.m. Pacific time. And we look forward to all of you joining that webinar. And that's pretty much the wrap of this call. So is there anything else people would like to discuss? Any kind of cool Zeek holiday stories or anything fun that people worked on recently with Zeek? We're all ears. Okay, I think people don't have much updates. So anywho, all right, then let's just wrap this call, and I hope to see you guys next week at Zeek webinar, and hopefully we'll have set of updates for the community, hopefully in New Year. So have a good rest of the day and see you guys next week. Thanks, everyone.